In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about why some techniques of forming a bassoon reed produce more consistent results than others, and what you can do to form reeds better. So, are you ready for this? It's morphin time! Brontosaurus! And don't forget, if you like this video and other videos on this channel, to hit the subscribe button and make sure that notifications are on so that you can find your way back for the next one. Whenever I look at a bassoon reed that someone else has made, I make two immediate observations. Firstly, I check to see if a crack has formed in the tube which runs into the blade. And secondly, I look at the butt end of the reed to see if it has been made completely round. If a reed has a crack running into the blade, it will be much more difficult to play, especially in the lower register of the bassoon. Cracks can occur through no fault of the reed maker, but if they are appearing in your reeds as frequently as 30% of the time or more, then there very well may be a problem with your tube forming process. Furthermore, if the butt end of the reed is not perfectly round, the reed may not create a perfect seal against the bocal. While some use a reamer to correct this issue, it doesn't always work, and in any case there is no excuse for sloppy reed making. One common way of forming a reed is to place the wires around the tube after the cane has been folded over and then insert the mandrel. Despite its popularity, this technique is relatively problematic, at least in my opinion. When the mandrel is inserted, most of the pressure to round the tube is applied directly below the three wire placements, and the areas in between those wires form or bend or flex differently. If you look down the inside of a number of reeds formed in this way, you will sometimes see that the bore of the tube will not be even. There will be slight changes in the taper of the bore under the first and second wires. You see this method or something like it endorsed by Rieger, for example, who make a little kit to help set the cane on the mandrel. In fact, you form the reed simply by tightening the wires, since the cane is already set up against the mandrel itself. I have to admit, I bought this whole kit along with the mandrel that they made for it, the F5 model, and I cracked every single reed I tried to form with it beyond playability. No doubt it works for some people, but it definitely didn't work for me. The F5 mandrel, along with many mandrels on the market, are quite narrow at the forming marker, this one being 5.1 millimeters. My 2X reed mandrel, which forms tubes that only infrequently need to be reamed, is 5.95 millimeters at the forming marker. One of the arguments for using a narrow forming pin seemed to me to be that the reaming of the tube should be a necessary step in the making of every reed, and not simply to make a correction. I think it's necessary as a professional bassoonist to have a reamer in my reed kit, but I don't think I should be building my reed making process around it. You'll also notice that reeds with a relatively wide shape at the butt end will often result in strange compressions of fibers, making the tube hard to round perfectly. There are plenty of photos advertising reeds on the internet and social media featuring reeds with butt ends which were not rounded correctly, but in fact were corrected in a later stage with a reamer. The best way to combat cracking and poor tube forming, in my opinion, would be to form the tube having wrapped the reed firmly in butcher's twine, or even with an elastic band. I use butcher's twine myself, so I'll be demonstrating that here. The fact that the whole tube is wrapped allows even pressure to be applied, and no pressure points are created. Of course, you have to be careful not to crimp too high up from the butt end, no further towards the collar than the second wire point. If you're using a wider shape, such as the Chrisleib shape seen here, then you may find that by the time the tube dries, that the first and second wire areas are too flat to your liking. This can be combated by placing those wires during the forming stage, but after forming the tube. To help round the butt end even more in this case, I use the twine I unwrapped when placing the wires to wrap tightly around the butt area after placing the reed on the drying pin. If you're watching this and thinking that this isn't a particularly time-efficient way of forming a tube, I agree, there are faster ways. However, when it comes to bassoon reeds, working fast isn't necessarily working better. If you are able to reduce cracking and produce better sealing reeds even by 10%, then you are saving a lot of wasted time and energy making reeds which you'll never play in concert. Of course, there will always be reeds which won't make the cut, but let that be simply because of the quality of the material and not because of the handwork. So I hope that this video is helpful to you in some way. If you want to see more info on reed making from me, then go ahead and visit the bassoons.ch Facebook page linked below, and you can watch over 30 live streams on reed making topics. And don't forget to please consider supporting my online work by becoming a patron via Patreon or by making an order at bassoons.ch. Thanks very much for watching, and take it easy. Bye-bye.